Okay, so I want you guys to see another article from this magazine that I was reading, the same magazine. Okay, hate crimes against Muslims in Canada jumped by 71%. Okay, I want to go over this too because, like I was saying in the other video, there's a common denominator between all of these articles that are in this newspaper. Okay, so I'm going to move the camera away because I can't read it while the camera's on there. So, okay. So, hate crimes against Muslims hate crimes against Muslims across Canada jumped by 71% in 2021, according to a newly released report by the government agency Statistics Canada. Released on August 9th, the study found that the number of recorded attacks against Muslims increased from 84 incidents in 2020 to 144 in 2021. In 2019, a total of 182 incidents targeting Muslims had been reported. We lost Canadian Muslims due to hate in 2021. These numbers also do not tell the whole story. We know that the numbers of hate crimes vastly exceed what show up in hate crime stats. The National Council for Canadian Muslims said on Twitter following the release of the report. One of the examples of this surge in violence against Muslims in Canada was the killing of four members of a Pakistani Canadian family in Ontario in June 2021. The attacker, 20 years old Nathaniel Veltman, excuse me if I pronounced the name wrong. Uh, okay, Veltman right here. I don't know if I said it right. Veltman. I hope I said it right. And then these right here, these names right here, I apologize if I butcher them, but if if I pronounce them wrong, please correct me. Okay, so deliberately rammed his pickup truck into Salman Afzal, 46. His 77. Okay, let me. Because I got thrown off because I'm not used to pronouncing names, that are outside of, like, traditional American names. So excuse me. Okay, so the attacker, 20 years old, Nathaniel Veltman, deliberately rammed his pickup truck into Salman Afzal. Please correct me if I mispronounced it. Okay, so Mr. Salman is 46 years old. His 77-year-old mother, wow, his wife Madiha, 44, and their 15-year-old daughter Yuma. So this was a whole family. Mr. Salman was 46, his 77-year-old mother, his wife was 44, and their 15-year-old daughter. So this Nathaniel Veltman killed a child along with a family with an elderly person. Mm. Okay, so 15-year-old daughter Yuma, as they were waiting to cross the road. Oh no. The Canadian police called the attack premeditated and an example of hatred against Muslims, while Trudeau described it as a terrorist attack. This was a terrorist attack motivated by hatred in the heart of one of our communities. Trudeau said at the time, if anyone thinks racism and hatred don't exist in this community, I want to say this. How do we explain such violence to a child in a hospital? How can we look how can we look families in the eye and say Islamophobia isn't real? It wasn't a one-off incident. Hate crimes against Muslims in Canada grew 253% between 2012 and 2015, according to various estimates. Islamoph- Islamophobic attacks across Canada have increased at an alarming pace. Not only the number of these attacks has increased, but also many of them happen to Muslim women and girls. Oh, wow. Street, wow. I had to let that kind of sink in. Street racism is often inspired by online hate speech and extremism, which has increased in the country. The 2017 terror attack at a mosque in Quebec killed 6 men after offering their evening prayers. Wow. So there was a terroristic attack at a mosque in Quebec. This person who, or I don't know if they didn't really specify on whether or not this terroristic attack consisted of just one person or if it was a group or what, but these men were killed for praying. 6 men who just so happened to be of the Islamic faith were killed just because they were praying to their most high, the most high that they believe in. Wow. I just want to take a quick note. That's very disrespectful to do to somebody. It's okay for us to have differences in beliefs. Like, it's okay for you to believe in Allah and say if another person believes in Jesus, but I believe in the Most High. I may not have a name for it, but that is extremely disrespectful to attack somebody and to kill them or to murder them while they're praying. They're giving their thanks and praise to the Most High for being here and showing their gratitude. That's very disrespectful. Okay, I'm going to read it again. The 2017 terror attack at a mosque in Quebec killed 6 men after offering their evening prayer. Last year, a caretaker at a Toronto mosque was stabbed to death, and the perpetrator was said to have been influenced by neo Nazi social media posts. A 2016 Forum poll revealed that 41% of Canadian adults express some level of bias against racial groups, with Muslims having the highest negative rating at 28%. Another survey published in 2016 by Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants found that only 32% of Ontarians had a positive impression of Islam. Wow. Last year, in reports published by NCCM, it was suggested that the federal government take measures to combat Islamophobic actions, including a budget to support families affected by violence against Muslims. Okay, so I would like to make another side note. I have a friend that was born in Canada, and I can never really truly understand what it's like to live in Canada. I lived close. It was a point in time I lived in Wisconsin. And for those of you who may not know, Wisconsin's culture is very similar to Canada because a lot of Canadian immigrants moved to Wisconsin to have the benefits of, living in the U.S. It's very difficult to live in Canada because living in places like Canada or Mexico, the benefits are just slightly different. Like um, you get free healthcare in Canada, but if you're not willing to pay top dollar, you gotta wait. You gotta wait in line, no matter the emergency. In Mexico, on the other hand, um, because there isn't, I don't know what it's like living in Mexico, but what I've heard from friends that lived in Mexico is that it's very hard out there, with the drug cartel and just a lot of gang violence out there. And, I'm sure that in the US we can relate, but going to places like Mexico and Canada is just a different experience. And what I've noticed about Canadian citizens and Mexican citizens is that what they both have in common is that they moved to the US to receive, you know, what they perceive as or what they are saying as better opportunities here. Now, I don't know. I've never been to Canada and I've never been to Mexico, but it it made me a little bit more. It made me want to be a little bit more aware of stuff like that. So I actually have a friend that was born in Canada, and she said that there was a lot of racism there. Now I completely understand because she, was saying that she struggled with, growing up being dark skinned. And, in Canada, it's a majority white European populated country. I mean, and this is just statistics. This is just the facts. And so anyone that is black, whether they're biracial or mixed or light skin, red skin, or have a darker complexion, are given an extremely hard time. And actually, she's not the only black friend that I have that was born in Canada that told me that they've had a very dangerous experience there. She's not the first person. She's the only person's story that I remember, and she was more recent. But there are other people who said that they've either visited Canada and they were like kicked out by white Canadians, or their experience there was so bad that they had to leave and go somewhere else, like the Netherlands. There were people that were saying that they wanted to move to Canada because it's beautiful there, but the Netherlands is just as beautiful as Canada, but you don't have to deal with as much racism. Now I don't know because I've never been to the Netherlands or Canada, but this is just stories that I've received from people that were close to me. So that was a side note that I wanted to make. Um, okay, so the next article that I wanted to read is okay. So this article is called Racism Linked to Alzheimer's, Dementia in Blacks. Okay. Now, just a quick side note before I read the article. My great uncle, he passed away. I want to say he passed away in 2000, maybe like the beginning of 2012. This is when this was my first year in college. So I want to say it was like somewhere between 2012 2013. My great uncle passed away due to Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's runs in my family on my mother's side. Okay, or more specifically, my maternal grandmother's side, to be very specific. Okay, and on that side of the family, um, let's just say there on my maternal grandmother's side, about 75% of my family members are dark skinned black people. Coincidence? You tell me. Okay, so racism is associated with lower memory and worse cognition, especially among blacks. According to studies released at this year's Alzheimer's Association International Conference 2022 in San Diego, according to the Alzheimer's Association's annual 2022 Alzheimer's Disease Facts and Figures report, blacks are about twice as likely, and Hispanic slash Latinos are about 1.5 times as likely to have Alzheimer's or other dementias. Lower socioeconomic status, lower quality early life education, and less access to healthy food and proper health care are a few of the types of experiences in a structural racism and discrimination that contribute to systemic iniquities, according to the Facts and Figures report. In order to achieve healthy equity as a step toward complete inclusion, Individuals and society must identify and reduce racism and other forms of discrimination. Okay. Equity and inclusion offer at the Alzheimer's Association in a press release. We must create a society in which the undeserved, disproportionately affected, and underrepresented underrepresented are safe, cared for, and valued. In a study of nearly 1,000 middle-aged community dwelling adults, 55% Latino, 23% Black, 19% white, exposure to interpersonal and institutional racism was associated with lower memory scores, and these associations were driven by Black individuals. Experiences of structural racism were associated with lower episodic memory among all racial and ethnic groups that were included in the study. Represented during the conference held July 31st through August 4th. Experiences of daily interpersonal racism were measured by the Everyday Discrimination Scale. According to Jennifer Manley, professor of neuropsychology at Columbia University Irving Medical Center, research found that non Hispanic Black participants had the highest mean exposure to daily racism compared to Latinos and whites. In addition, on average, Black participants experienced interpersonal discrimination at least once every week. They they were more likely to attribute those experiences to their race, ancestry, or skin color. In terms of institutional racism, non Hispanic Black people experienced almost six civil rights violations on average in their lifetime, she stated. Now, I can tell you, speaking for as a Black person, I've received way more than six civil rights violations. Including my violation of my Miranda rights and so on and so forth. With search warrants, that those rights were violated, and I'm pretty sure that there are other Black people that could tell you their rights were violated more than their civil rights were violated more than once, including the right to search. No warrant, no nothing, but our rights were still violated. I'm pretty sure many Black people can tell you. And also, by the way, I just want to, sneak this little fun fact in here. Um, when a police officer pulls you over and they ask you to search your car, if they don't have a probable cause and they send K9, when you tell them no, they just violated your rights. Because if they don't have any, like, say for instance, my situation, I got pulled over for a broken tail light. Somebody broke my tail light. Okay, that's a side note. But anyway, if we're just gonna, play devil's advocate here, um, I got pulled over from a broken tail light, right? And then the police wanted to search the car. I told them no, and then they sent K9 and searched the car. And oh, I also want to put in a side note that when the police officers searched the car, they roughhoused me and the girl that I was dating at the time. They roughhoused the both of us. Okay, and they searched the car. They were extremely aggressive. And then next thing you know, I was wearing a hairpiece at the time because I suffer from alopecia. I think it's areata. I think that's how you spell it, or how you pronounce it, areata. So I suffer from alopecia, so I was wearing a hairpiece at the time. The police officer that I was dealing with that asked to search the vehicle snatched my hairpiece right off my head and smiled at me. Okay, that was very very racist. But I just wanted to add that in there because I know that I'm not the only uh, person of color that has been roughhoused by the police and my rights were violated. And I just wanted to share that little quick story. Just fun fact. Okay, where was I? Okay, in terms of wait. Okay, so in terms of institutional racism, non-Hispanic black people experienced almost 6 civil rights violations on average in their lifetime, she stated. Researchers also found that at least half of the Black and Latino participants lived in segregated neighborhoods during childhood, compared to only about 8% of the white participants. The bottom line is that our results suggest that the exposure to racism is a substantial driver of later life memory function, even in middle age, and especially for Black people, said Professor Manley. Our results suggest that efforts to increase systemic equality may also decrease risk for cognitive impairment later in life, she added. Our results suggest that efforts to increase systemic equality may also decrease risk of cognitive impairment later in life. A key solution is to achieve health equity is for individuals and society to identify and reduce racism and other forms of discrimination, recommended Dr. Hill. So, the key solution is to achieve health equity for individuals, not just white people, not just people of color, and then it just exclude black people. But we're talking about everyone who deserves that fair chance, especially a child going to school. A child is an innocent person, a pure soul. So every child, especially, should have an equal opportunity, should receive equity in their health, should receive that. So it shouldn't be a situation where people in the hood are eating junk food and people who can afford to live in the suburbs are eating filet mignon. No, everybody needs to be eating good. Period. Okay? Because it also helps not only with neurological functions, but it helps with behavior as well. Because you can't truly just hold somebody accountable if what you're feeding them is poison. If you're poisoning someone, of course it's going to affect their behavior. What did you think was going to happen? And then blame them and ship them off to jail and not take accountability for how the system is screwing the youth over. Okay, so let's acknowledge that. Through its diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, the Alzheimer's Association the Alzheimer's Association is partnering with more entities, including the National Association of Hispanic Nurses and the African Methodist Episcopal Church, to address these barriers patterned by racism. He said in a new briefing on August 1st. Racism is trauma that leads to increased stress. Racism is trauma that leads to increased stress. Racism is trauma that leads to increased stress, which we know can result in negative biological changes such as inflammation. I would like to repeat that. Okay? Let me just, because I know y'all heard me, but there's a reason why I'm repeating this. Racism is trauma that leads to increased stress, which we know can result in negative biological changes such as inflammation. I was just talking about this earlier about cognitive functions, neurological functions, behavior, all of this. Inflammation is a known risk factor for cognitive difficulties, including dementia, cancer as well. Inflammation of the body leaves the body receptive to whatever disease that, whatever disease that, like say, whatever organ in your body is the weak link, that's what your body will be, that's the disease that your body will be receptive to. So if your body is experiencing inflammation, which is a hormonal imbalance in the body, you're naturally going to attract diseases. It's almost like having HIV. It's almost the same. Almost. I'm not going to say it's because HIV is sexually transmitted. But if we're talking about inflammation, inflammation in itself is an autoimmune disease. It just is. Any disease, any sickness, any ailment is an autoimmune disease. The immune system has been compromised due to A, B, and C. The organs being compromised is due to A, B, and C. What is the root of those two things being connected to having inflammation and having disease and all of this stuff? Stress, yes. What else? Maybe possibly the way someone's being treated. Okay, well, let's continue. Okay, so, but because of systemic health disparities that create poor access to health, medication, housing, health protecting resources. Look, I'm sorry, y'all. I know y'all getting tired of me repeating myself, but I'm going to repeat myself. Inflammation is a known risk factor for cognitive difficulties, including dementia. But because of systemic health disparities that create poor access to health, medication, housing, health protecting resources, those who experience racism are not provided a pathway to lower risk, said Dr. Hill. Thank you. It becomes a 1-2 punch for populations that experience this type of deprivation, he added. So, okay, I would like to make another side note. Okay, so the aka the matrix, okay, likes to create poor access. The matrix likes to create poor access to health care, medical treatments, reasonable housing situations, aka having all these goddamn abandoned houses and abandoned businesses and abandoned apartments and not letting nobody sleep in none of them, having everybody sleeping outside, being selfish and greedy and stingy with the housing complexes because you got a complex, okay? Blocking people from being able to eat healthier by raising the prices on fruits and vegetables and herbs, or making it nearly impossible to access them, or tampering with them. So if this, we've already talked about the solution. You know, the thing is, a health nut is not going to force a person to eat healthy. We can't force people to eat healthy, because the reality of it is, when we eat unhealthy foods, it's an addiction. It's a, you know what I'm saying? It's a chemical reaction. The brain has a chemical reaction to that. You know what I mean? It just does. So it's not always easy to just be like, "Oh, well, meat is killing you, so stop eating it." Because if you take somebody that's used to eating meat on a daily, breakfast, lunch, dinner, meal, main course meal, like, you know, um, I grew up in a black church, and pretty much the majority of the food that they serve is meat, you know, junk food, starches, cheese, stuff like that. And I'm not judging. It's just the food is delicious. It's really good, but It's killing us though. And the thing is, like, if you have, like, say, a steak, and then you got vegetables with bacon in it, and then you got baked beans with bacon in it, and then you got dirty rice with beef in it, and then the thing on the side is your pastry. You got cake, then you got cookies, then you got fruit, but the fruit's old and rotten and smells bad. It's not even ripe anymore. You catch my drift? That's all you got to eat. So of course it's gonna raise up your cholesterol. Of course it's gonna raise up the chances of you having inflammation. Of course you're gonna be 10 times more likely to get dementia or some form of neurological damage. Of course. Because you're being poisoned. We're being poisoned. Okay? So if you raise the price on fruits and vegetables and herbs that can help people, if you raise the prices on those, if you decrease the number of times that healthy foods are imported into the grocery stores, meaning allowing the the healthy food in there to spoil and rot so that people don't really have an option. And for some grocery stores that like to tap a little bit in the darker side, have fruits and vegetables that aren't even real, serving people plastic for rice. That's definitely an example of pushing people in the direction to be a carnivore, essentially. Okay? And then not even just that, but also the school systems, taking out all the extracurricular programs, taking out all of them. And then taking out recess, taking out the extracurricular activities, taking out the fine arts programs and just making it academic. Having block schedules instead of giving kids an opportunity to socialize, have fun, have some physical exercise. And also what people don't know is that they're slowly taking PE out of the school systems too. Yeah, they're taking PE out. They're taking PE out. They don't even make people work out no more in PE. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to be a professional athlete, but damn, you know what I mean? So, I just kind of wanted to bring awareness to that. Of course, if you make healthcare, medical expenses extremely expensive, and you know that certain people can't afford it, what did you think was gonna happen? What did you think was gonna happen? Okay, so just word of advice for those who, are kind of slowly maybe waking up to this, or they may be wondering, well, what do we do here? What's the solutions? How do we respond to this now that we know what's going on and we know where to point the finger? I found myself asking, well, if society is facing all these problems and injustices and health issues and all this, I mean, why don't we just get better? But then I started noticing that there was, some blocks. It could be spiritual, could be physical, it could be financial blocks. We don't really know, but there's definite. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that can sense that there's something blocking humanity from evolving spiritually. I mean, there's clearly something standing in the way. So what? Who is the problem? I often ask myself this question many times. Who is the problem? Who is standing in the way of the youth? Who is standing in the way of not just black progress, but human progress? Who's standing in the way? Who's the problem? Who do we point the finger at? And, reading all those articles, I came to conclusion that the people who are to blame are white Europeans. So, why would I make such a bold claim? Why would I just point the finger at white people? Why would I do such a thing? How could I do so? How could I do that? Well, first of all, take a look around. Um, Go to homeless shelters and see who all is there. Go to the Christian churches and see who's occupying those Christian churches. If you see people of color, just look at them. Look at the clothes they're wearing. Look at the hairstyles. Listen to the way they speak. Have a conversation with them. Don't be condescending. Don't be on that, holier than thou, or I'm gonna be, I'm gonna patronize you and talk to you like you're stupid. No, I'm not talking about that. I mean, like, really, like, have just a conversation outside, like a mentally stimulating or challenging conversation. I'm not saying be overly or, oppositional to the point where it's disrespectful, but I'm saying, like, really have a conversation. Because at the end of the day, the blame needs to be pointed where the blame has to go. So why do I say that white people are a huge part of the problem as to the devolution of the human species? Why would I make such a bold claim? That's bold as fuck, huh? That's bold. Well, think about it. Do you see any more farms? Do you see farms? Who were the original farmers across the globe? Who ran the farming industry after colonization? Who ran the farming industries after that? And what did they do to those animals? How did the white Europeans treat those animals? Because I remember when I was younger, the significant difference from when I was younger and I used to walk around, I used to see cows, horses, bulls. I used to see all different types of animals. Now I can't see shit but buildings, industrial buildings that are leaking out carcinogenic gas. And then anytime, like, think about this. It don't matter if you black, it don't matter if you Muslim, it don't matter if you're Asian, but think about it. Like, just pay attention. Like, say if, like, you were to go to like a park, right? A public park. Bring all your people. Bring all your real niggas with you. So Asians, bring your Asian friends. Go to the park, chill at the park, have a basic conversation. How much you want to bet that you'll see a white security guard walking all the way around? Because I've seen this many times, whether I was with a group of black people, whether I was with a group of, like, just different people mixed. So it was a point in time where well, actually, this happened to me multiple times, but there was a point in time in my life where I was on some revolutionary activism type shit, straight up. So what I did was I grabbed up as many people as I possibly could. I didn't care what they looked like on the outside. I got as many people as I could, and we would just go um, to different locations, and we would have fun. Like, we would go to the movies, or we would go to the carnival, or we'd go to a water park, or we'd do just a whole bunch of things together. And it was like like a adult recreational group. Like, that was kind of what that was. And what I started noticing was we would get pulled over by the police for bullshit, for trumped up charges. We would all, every time I took my group of friends out, we would always get pulled over. And we weren't, doing drugs in the car. We weren't drinking while driving. We weren't, the car was in good condition. We weren't doing anything wrong. But we started noticing that, like, I'm telling you, I mean, this is